2018, he was the light heavyweight championship winner of the $1 million bracket for the PFL. So let's bring him in right away. We'll bring in my man. Here we are, Sean O'Connell. How are you, Sean?
Doing good. How are you?
Good, man. Hanging in there?
Yeah, just it's a nice day here in Salt Lake City where I live, so I'm enjoying what I can.
Yeah, you guys aren't on full lockdown now, or you?
No, actually, Utah is one of, I think, 8 states that has not been issued like a very strict stay-at-home order. I mean, we're doing social distancing and a lot of businesses are closed like everywhere else, but a lot of people moving around here, maybe more than than there should be. But yeah, folks are taking the time, and if you go to like a Home Depot or a Lowe's or whatever, a home store, those places are packed right now because everyone's taking the time to build their fences and get all the other hunting dues done. But yeah, it's we at least get to be outside, so I can't complain too much.
Good to hear that. Here, it's interesting here. Like people are quite pissed off here because the liquor stores are open, but the parks are closed. You know, and
Really?
the gyms are closed and everything. The coffee shops are open, the liquor stores are open. But it's just it's they say if those are closed, it's going to lead to domestic abuse and that kind of thing, which they probably have a point, I guess, right? But
Yeah, I guess. Jeez.
it's kind of a hard argument to go with, right, when the gyms are closed. But you have an interesting story, man, and I'm honored to you join us. We're a promotion up here in Nova Scotia, Canada. You and I spoke a little bit before. We're new into this. We've been in the sport a long time, but it's our coming up on our second event, so we have no events to do. So
Right, where we got to find something else to talk about because we don't have any events.
yeah, that's true. I noticed you guys are doing kind of the same thing, just on a little obviously nicer scale than what we're doing it. So you're doing some nice interviews there with a lot of your athletes, huh?
Yeah, we're trying to get some content out there, and they actually they got some really fun stuff coming down the pipe that I'm excited to be part of. And it's everyone's figuring out a new normal in the rest of for PFL. Yesterday they made the announcement that the 2020 season they're not going to try and run it. They're not.
First event, I look at commentators, color, and broadcasting. To me, it's one of the most important aspects of the whole presentation for me as a promoter. I want the fights to look and sound good. I want people who are talking about them to know what they're talking about. So we brought Jimmy Smith up, who obviously
Oh
probably,
yeah,
man, killed it.
he's great. Jimmy
Yeah.
is a consummate pro. I've had the opportunity to do some post fight shows, UFC post fight shows on Sirius XM with Jimmy, and yeah, that's a home run move by a small regional promotion. I mean, that's big time. Good for you getting him on there.
Yeah, it was funny. The thing is, again, like it's like even contacting you. I'm a huge fan and I'm a hustler, so I keep working like, and I don't mind putting myself out there for the betterment of the sport and trying to meet people, meet good people. And I bugged him and I said, hey, like you want to come up, and like that was like 6 months before the show, and then about 2 months before he said, are you fucking for real? You really still want me to do this? I was like, yeah, for sure. And he did it. Loved it.
That's great. Yeah. Now that you told me that story, though, I'm going to be expecting an invitation for myself. So,
Hey,
you put yourself out there a little bit.
Hey, if you're not under contract, we'd love to have you. No question about it. Love it.
Sweet.
Fantastic. How's it going for you? Obviously, you know, every fighter goes through the same thing, transitioning. Was it important for you, whether it was coaching or that kind of broadcasting? Was that always a plan for you to add to that at the end of your career? Kind of, I want to stay in the sport.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that I would have a hard time just like going from being in the cage to on the couch, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, I ended up not training as much as I thought I would post fights. You know, I thought I'd still be in the gym more and helping coach the younger guys coming up and just staying in shape and all that. We had a kid. I had my first child,
Oh,
and you know,
congrats.
yeah, thank you. And that was about 5 months after the fight, and you know that consumes you a little bit, the dad life. And I'm still working a lot. I was working a lot, at least before this COVID crisis. And so, yeah, you know, it kind of, the MMA world would have gotten away from me if it were not for PFL and the broadcasting. So I'm really happy that that was the thing that kind of kept me rooted and connected to the sport, because, you know, maybe if I didn't have the broadcast thing, I would have made more of an effort to stay connected in another way.
Yeah.
But it was a super convenient way for me to still be, you know, kind of right in the mix and among all these people that I get along with so well, and alongside legends like Eve Edwards and Randy Couture. And
Yeah.
I'm still learning a lot about the sport and in the sport, watching the fighters that are still on the roster and talking to some of the coaches that are bringing those guys through to championships. It's pretty cool. It's
I bet.
I'm blessed to be able to do it all and be on all sides of it.
Yeah, yeah. Kudos to you for doing it, but nothing comes without hard work too, right? You earned it, and
Sure.
you know
Yeah.
it's you know the luck involved, but hard work too. And that's where I always get a kick of like my buddies or people who are like acting tough, and I'm like, you know, here I am, a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, and sometimes you have that little bravado, knowing in the back of my head I couldn't, like, I can't fight at all. But you know,
Well, you
you
can
get
fight a
these other
little bit
guys.
if it's in the right spot. You could definitely fight, right? I mean, as a brown belt, you can handle yourself. Don't
Yeah,
sell yourself short.
well, that's true, but I mean, like going for like a guy like you who's always saying, you know, you can always learn. Like, and you're around guys like legends. Like for me, like I'm a fan of you. You look up to you, and there's levels all the time, getting higher and higher. And like to sit there beside Couture, I'm sure the stories are endless.
Dude, it's awesome. And they tell you don't meet your heroes, right? Because I was a fan of Randy. Randy's one of the big reasons I got into the sport after playing college football, because that tough season one kind of era
Mm-hmm.
that I wish I could be one of these fighters that told you, oh, I watched from UFC one, and you know, I was getting the VHS tapes when I was a kid and all that. And it just wasn't true, you know.
Yeah,
In the 90s, when I was 10 years old at UFC one, I wasn't watching. I
yeah,
didn't really, I mean, I was aware of the sport and I thought it was cool, but I really became one of those noobs that jumped on the train around the tough season one. And I was playing college football at the time, and I was watching that season, and I was looking at those guys, and I was just like, man, these dudes are the hardest dudes in the world. And people don't realize, like, the Chris Lieben treadmill test. Do you remember that from Tough Season One?
no, no,
Oh man, go back and watch it.
yeah,
They did a thing where you ran, I think it was 5 minutes at one speed, and then 5 minutes. So they went like at speed. Sorry, my
oh yeah,
Instagram's kicking me off here. Um, yeah, if you go watch, I don't know what episode it was on in season one, but they gave him a treadmill fitness test, and they put him on the treadmill and they set the speed at 5, and I think they had to go 5 minutes, and then after 5 minutes they went to speed 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way to 10. And if
wow,
when you're at 10 on a treadmill, I mean, you're basically sprinting, and if that's you've
yeah,
already been on the treadmill 25 minutes, only one guy got through it, and it's one of those things where you
wow,
just it's not about how good of an athlete you are. It's not about how fast you actually are. It's about how hard you can push. And that's something I thought signed me. And they're just like, you're 3-0 against a bunch of scrubs that we've never heard of. The UFC doesn't want you, you idiot. And I was just like, yeah, okay. So,
not yet.
yeah. So you learn through the process.
Yeah, that's true. True. It's interesting how important a good agent and manager is, though. You
Yeah,
know?
it's a tough thing because when nobody knows your name, they're very important, right?
Yeah.
They're crucial
Yeah.
because you got to get on that list somewhere. That list that Mick Maynard has, and back when I got into the UFC, it was Joe Silva who had the list, or Sean Shelby. You got to get on that list that they're going to call you if they need someone short notice, or for the PFL, it's Ray Sefo. How do you get
Yeah.
on Ray Sefo's radar, right?
Good luck. Huh?
And if you're just like, if you're the equivalent of what I was back then, you're just some dude fighting on the local scene, putting together what you hope is an impressive record, and you don't really know anybody else. I
Yeah.
was lucky enough that Jeremy Horn was my coach, so I could put myself out there, or a manager, or an agent, or whoever. And my early agent was his significant other, Jeremy's longtime girlfriend, Jen Howe, who was a great fighter herself. And she would like put me out there, and Jeremy would co-sign, and that's huge.
Yeah.
Once they know your name, though, the manager's like,
Yeah.
you don't really need them anymore. So it's weird because in our sport, you got to sign a manager to get you to a certain point, and then you don't want to just get rid of your manager if they're the one who got you to that point. So it's a complicated issue, in my opinion. A
Need
lot
a
of managers,
prenup.
a lot of managers are charging 10 and 20% for
Yeah.
MMA fighters. In the industry standard in other professional sports is 3 to 10%. The
Big
NFL is
difference.
3%. It's a huge difference.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man.
And the money in football isn't necessarily the same in the UFC. A manager who's looking after look for Melky. What's his name? Melky Kawa, is that his
Melky
name?
Kawa, yeah.
He looks after a lot of different sports. So yeah, it's interesting because like I look at a guy like Ali. I don't know. I don't know the guy obviously personally, but I'm like, is that necessary? I don't
Uh,
know.
that's a great example, right? So he's so. I don't know him personally either. I've had
Yeah,
one conversation with him in life, and um, he's so connected.
yeah,
And if you want someone to sign you, you want someone to know your name. He's the kind of guy that can get you there, right?
yeah,
He's the kind of guy that has Ray Sefo on speed dial, and
yeah,
Dana White actually answers his phone calls and that kind of stuff. And there's very few people in the MMA world that are like that. So fighters, they think they need someone like that, and he's not the only example. He's just the example we're
yeah,
using right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
But you think you need that guy, and maybe you do to cross that threshold. But thankfully now there's other ways, right? PFL's doing the international qualifier series.
Love that.
The UFC's looks like they've gone more the way of Tuesday Night Contender Series instead of Tough, but there's
Yeah,
other ways to get in. But yeah, the manager thing, it's like I think Ali represented in the season I won my championship for Professional Fighters League. I think he represented half of the champions, right?
wow.
So without lifting a finger that night, he made a heck of a lot of
Yeah,
money.
that's true. That's true.
So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wouldn't want to be sharing that big of a chunk of my $1 million purse with a manager. It was hard enough to do it with a coach who's been with me for 10 years.
yeah,
So with a manager, whew,
yeah. That's true, and that's the thing. It's you're the one in there. At the end of the day, right? You're the one putting your body and soul on the line, right? So it kind of brings me to my next question. Obviously, the $1 million, everyone's asked you about that, life changing, blah blah blah. It's going to be life changing, but how important was your family throughout this whole thing? Obviously, you're a new dad. Family's probably got to be pretty high up there, and
yeah, man, it changed my whole perspective. I got married shortly before the season started, and then we found out my wife was pregnant before the finals. It was
wow,
right before the playoffs where I had to fight 2 times in one night. So
crazy.
it was like, okay, well, yeah, being newlyweds, whatever. You want to provide, but you're both adults. You can both work, all that stuff. Then I found out we were having a child, and I was like, oh man, okay, no more, no more feeling sore and skipping a workout at the gym, right? Because it's like
Yeah,
Now you're worried about the long-term future. You're worried about all that stupid dad stuff, like paying for college eventually. So for me, it was really important because it was a good motivator and just a reminder that in a selfish sport, sometimes you got to do it for things bigger than you. So probably the only reason I won the championship is because I had bigger things than myself to fight for.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? I look at it, and everybody I talk to in this sport, you know, family is such a huge motivator for people, and that's why I was interested to see that. Obviously, a newborn, if it just kind of catapulted you, you know, to another kind of, you know, just a new, not a new level, but like mentally, like no, you can't break me.
Yeah, and you know, I've always kind of fancied myself as a guy who works harder than his opponents and things like that, or is willing to push deeper into the bad part of a fight than his
Yeah,
opponents. But you know, that's only true some of the time. And that night, it wasn't going to be one of those times where I came up short because I knew what was at stake. You know, it was my last fight. I knew it was going to be the last fight of my career. I wanted people to think of me going out on a high note. I wanted all of my friends and family that had made the trip to New York to see me go out on a high note. And obviously, I wanted to provide for my family's future in a way that you just don't get that many opportunities to do if you're not one of the top, you know, the top 3 to 5 fighters in every weight class in the world. $1 million isn't a realistic purse. So
no.
I was lucky.
Yeah. Well, and kudos to you, man. It was an incredible performance, and you look great. You earned it, every bit of it, man. I couldn't be happier for you. Um, I got to ask you about Jeremy Horn. You know, he actually came up here and fought. I'm not sure if you're aware. Back in the day, he fought here in Nova Scotia, and you know, everybody knows Jeremy Horn's history and his reputation. That must be quite the thing to have been training under him and still training with him.
Yeah, it was awesome. You know, especially for me, you got to find a coach that knows your skill set and is going to improve your skill set, but is also not going to try and turn you into something that you're not, right? So Jeremy, who's a black belt skill level 100 times over in jiu-jitsu, right? He knew that he could make my jiu-jitsu good enough to not be a weakness, but he also knew that I'm not like predisposed to loving jiu-jitsu and to being great at jiu-jitsu. So he didn't try and turn me into Jeremy Horn. He was just like, I'm going to make you really, really hard to submit. I'm going to make you really hard to hold down, and I'm going to make sure when you stand up, you can punch people, and they're going to hopefully fall asleep, you know? So yeah, he was great in just in the fit that we have personality-wise and skill-wise and everything else. And then there's nothing that man has not seen in a fight, right?
Yeah.
He's been in 100+ fights, so he's not going to be sitting in your corner going, "Oh wow, I've never seen that position before. I don't know how to tell you to get out of it."
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't shock the guy in a fight. You can't scare him in a fight. So he's the perfect dude to have in the corner. And there's this weird quality to his voice where even when he's not yelling, you can hear him no matter how loud the arena is. I don't know if it's like the pitch of his voice or whatever, but it works out nicely.
Nice. That's cool. Apparently, Worship doesn't have names for any techniques. Is that true?
I mean, he's got some names for him, but he's not like one of these dudes who's like throwing the Japanese lexicon for any judo throw, and
Yeah.
he's not a guy that gets hung up on whether it's a double wrist lock or an Americana or
Yeah.
whatever. He's just like, I'll call this a shoulder lock, but I'm going to teach you how to do it.
Yeah.
He's a very practical dude. Like, he doesn't care about the glitz and the glamour. In fact, he doesn't care enough about the glitz and the glamour because people deep in the sport know his name, but
Yeah.
everyone should know his name, right?
Agreed.
Everyone should
Agreed.
know his name. He just has never cared to like capitalize on his fame, which is kind of a bummer for me because I want to see him, have all the kind of financial success that he deserves for
Yeah.
all the work he's put in. But he's a simple dude. He's happy
Yeah.
with less than a lot of people, and he just wants to train fighters and shoot guns and hang out.
Yeah. Well, hey, kudos. If he's happy, I guess. What do you do, right? But it's funny you say that because it's as a fan and somebody who trains, you're like, man, I wish he'd put out those DVDs or whatever. Like, just give back, not give back because he's given tons, but like put it out there a little bit more because some of the legends don't get the credit and then some new guys getting a lot of the credit for the old guys stuff, right? So that's a
Yeah,
whole
sure.
different topic, though.
Yeah,
But
no, I mean,
Rick,
we could go 30 minutes just on that, but
yeah,
no, like
yeah,
I've been the beneficiary of Jeremy's wisdom, and so I can't really complain about the way that he wants to distribute it because
yeah,
he's one of my best friends in the whole world. He's like a big brother to me, and he's taken care of me my whole career, and I
yeah.
was very, very happy that we got to go out and have our last ride together and have it be successful.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool. That's the what at the end of the day, what more can you like? You have, obviously you're healthy, your family's healthy, but as an athlete, for it to come full circle like that, not a lot of times do clubs and athletes, coaches stick together the whole circle, then culminate with winning $1 million in a title. Good for you. It's a cool
Yeah,
story. I like that a lot.
it was important to me, and I felt like there's a trend in mixed martial arts that I don't want to criticize fighters who do this because I know it works for a lot of people, but a lot of times guys will get like, they build like a whatever, they're 10-0 or they're 15-1 or whatever. They get to a certain point where people are starting to pay attention to who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do? They abandon their original coach and their original team because now they're the biggest fish in the small pond. So they go to a famous gym where they can train with tough guys. And there's nothing wrong with that. You should keep testing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times that comes with you just severing the ties to your original coach. So that person who cornered you all the way up through to where you got discovered is now just a thing of the past for you. And that doesn't sit too well with me. Again, I don't want to criticize guys and gals who do it because it might be necessary for their careers. But for me, and I've talked with Ray Cooper III about this a couple of times because he's another guy who he trains with his family in his garage and he just won $1 million championship, right?
Done.
That does
Absolutely.
not, yeah, he's a stud. It's not the formula that people want you to follow. They want you to get to like, oh, everyone knows your name. Now you go to ATT or you go to Jackson's or you go to wherever and you all just become, part of this machine. And for me, it wasn't going to work that way. So I was happy that we got vindicated sort of with some success at the end.
Yeah, that's interesting you put it that way because I kind of look at it that way too. And again, I don't have the experience or I shouldn't even have the opinion to say that, but I'm interested in that. And it's one thing if it's your club that's, and you're affiliated under and your coaches are tighter kind of thing. I think that's a little different. But if you just sail ship and bail, it's even though the coaches a lot of times, sometimes they'll just shut up and won't say anything and be nice about it. But deep down, you can tell it's got to hurt. Oh,
Sorry, I'm back.
did I lose you? Sorry about that.
No, that's my fault.
One last question, if you don't mind. For me as a promoter, again, I said we're pretty new into this. We've done a lot of jiu-jitsu promotions, nothing like MMA. What advice do you got for me as a promoter to keep it going in the right direction? Obviously, everybody kind of says a lot of the same things about treating fighters properly, but any other inside information you can give us to keep making sure we're doing the right thing?
Well, I mean, that obviously matters a lot. You should pay fighters the maximum amount you can while still keeping it healthy for your business, right? You should make sure that they're taken care of in the little ways like, caring about their health and their safety. Good doctors got to be there ringside. But also I will say this, you should, as a promoter, expect the same professionalism from your fighters that they are expecting from you, right? They're all asking you to pay good travel, put them in a nice hotel, and make sure that their meals and whatever else is taken care of. Expect them, tell them, look, we're going to do our best to take care of you, but you're going to show up on time. You're going to make weight. You're going to be a good sport. You're going to be respectful to the commission. You're going to be respectful to all of my employees and to me as a promoter. It drives me nuts that we get these like prima donna mentalities where guys don't take, they want to be taken seriously, but they don't want to take the sport seriously. So as a fighter who's kind of been on both sides now, because I work for the Professional Fighters League, not as a promoter officially, but as, a voice and a face for their broadcast. Like, don't be the guy who's like, yeah, you better pay me max dollars, and then you show up and you don't make weight. It's a two-way street in our sport.
Yeah.
So I think that you as a promoter, you should be able to set that precedent early on in fighters' careers. And guys that are hopefully passing through your promotion into the PFL or through your promotion into the UFC, hopefully they will have learned on the regional scene that that shit doesn't fly. And you can't be that dude who wants everything, who wants to take, but he's not going to give back with professionalism and with courtesy and things like that. So I would say, as a promoter, be generous, but also be demanding when it comes to fighter behavior.
I love hearing that. I love hearing that. That's really solid advice for us, because it's a very hard balance, you know, and because especially with social media and being a new promotion, you don't want to rock the feathers too much, but at the end of the day, you have to have such a thick skin in this business, right? And I really appreciate that. You know, you're an absolute gem in the sport, and it's someone, again, I've looked up to for a long time. So hopefully we can chat again. And if you're serious and if you want to come up here ever, man, and you know, it's something we could work out. Obviously, PFL is number one, but if it's something we can work out, sure, we'd love to have you, man.
Yeah, man, and you know, even if it's just coming up and checking out the promotion and checking out the province. I've never been to Nova Scotia or any of the Maritime provinces, so it'd be cool to get out there. So, you know,
do a seminar.
Yeah, seminar would be fun, and we'll figure something out. But in the meantime, condolences to everyone with the tragedy that unfolded out there. Really, really sorry to hear about that. Unfortunately, here in the United States, we know that evil all too well, unfortunately. So you'll get through it, and hopefully we all get through this this COVID crisis that's happening at the same time sooner than later, and we can get back to normal. So everybody stay healthy and stay safe.
Thank you, man. There you have it, folks. If you want to learn how to be respectful, a classy athlete, that's a man you want to follow right there. Thank you so much, Sean. You're a stud. I appreciate it. Be safe, and lots of love to your family, man.
All right, same to you and yours. We'll talk soon.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.